Remember to like the video, give your opinions, and subscribe to get informed on our most recent news. Storms have always fascinated me. The drama, the sheer strength, the way they disrupt everything and make everything feel fresh once more. But what transpired during that specific storm altered everything. It had nothing to do with thunder or lightning. It was about something completely different, something human, surprising, and incredibly moving. Diane is my name. At 47, I've been residing in the quaint suburban hamlet of Willow Creek for the past 10 years. Though recently I had started to feel restless, as though something was lacking, something I couldn't exactly identify. Life here moves slowly, which I normally find pleasant. Home alone on a Friday night watching a rerun of an old black and white film, the lights flickered and finally went out completely. Wonderful, I thought, searching for candles haphazardly. Exactly what I required. Looking out the window, I saw the wind picking up and bending the trees under a lowering sky. Lighting a few candles, I covered myself in an old quilt my mother had given me years ago and plopped down on the couch, ready to weather the storm. Every drop pounding relentlessly like a rhythmic symphony, the rain began hammering the roof. Suddenly, amid the constant rain beating, I heard a loud banging at my front door. My heart skipped. Who would be outside during a storm like this? Grabbing my torch, I carefully approached the front door and looked through the window. Mark, my neighbor from 2 doors down, stood on my porch, soaked. A quiet, nice guy in his early 50s who usually kept to himself, Mark had moved in a few months back. Though I'd never had a genuine talk with him, we had traded hellos and short banter. Startled by how saturated he was, I opened the door fast. His shirt clung to his chest and his dark hair hung to his forehead. He looked ashamed, his cheeks reddening even in the low candle illumination. "Diane, I'm truly sorry to bother you," he replied, his voice muffled by the screaming wind. "A tree just fell over my driveway, blocking the road totally. My power's out too, and my phone battery's dead. I didn't know where else to go. I acted without thinking. Mark, come in. Out there you're going to catch your death." He walked in and I quickly gave him a large towel. Apologizing once more, he uncomfortably dried off. Though I didn't want to bother, "Nonsense," I said encouragingly. "We're neighbors. What good are we if we can't assist one another in a storm?" Mark's shoulders visibly relaxed at my comments, and I directed him into the living room. His features softened in the candlelight. I had never seen how very blue his eyes were, or how the wrinkles at the corners suggested many untold stories. Still shaking a little, he sat on the sofa. Rubbing his hands together, he said softly, "You'd think at my age I'd be better prepared." I chuckled softly. "Storms always catch us off guard," I said, considering not only the weather, but also my own recent agitated emotions. I gave him a new cup of tea I had somehow brewed prior to the power going off. The warmth restoring color back to his cheeks made him hold it gratefully. We began speaking, first about the storm, then about ourselves, as the wind howled outside. After losing his wife 5 years ago, Mark had just relocated to Willow Creek to start over. I was taken aback by his candor. He spoke softly of his late wife, honoring her memory with gentle respect, yet there was a subtle loneliness that really struck me. I said in exchange that after a marriage that slowly slipped into friendship instead of love, I had been divorced for 7 years. "We grew apart," I said quietly, staring down into my drink. "Funny how loneliness creeps up on you, isn't it?" Mark nodded pensively, his eyes sympathetic and understanding. "The hardest is the quiet," he said in agreement. particularly on evenings like this one. A comforting stillness filled with the rhythm of rain and the soft flicker of candlelight descended between us. I sensed a change inside me, a warmth I hadn't experienced in decades. Still, I was wary, fearing misinterpretation of this newly discovered closeness that seems to come so easily between us. Mark eventually spoke up, his voice low and unsure. "Diane, thanks for allowing me in tonight. You didn't have to." I stretched out instinctively and touched his arm lightly. "I'm glad you knocked," I said truthfully. Truth be told, storms like these serve as a reminder of how alone I often feel. It's good to share it with someone. Mark's hand lay softly over mine, the warmth of his touch sending a faint electric pulse through me. "Me too," he said quietly, looking into my eyes and radiating sincerity with every word. "Talking to you like this has peculiar comfort given I've spent many nights alone recently." Surprised and touched by the unanticipated depth of our relationship, my heart fluttered somewhat. Thunder rolled loudly outside, breaking our stillness and accentuating the gravity of the situation. I found myself attracted to Mark in a manner I hadn't experienced towards anyone in a very long past. But we both started to realize how fragile and unexpected this moment was as the wind howled louder and lightning lit the shadows in the space. Suddenly bashful, a flush appeared on my cheeks. Sensing my uncertainty, Mark softly cleared his throat. "Diane," he whispered gently, ending our shared quiet. "Though I don't want to make your life any more difficult, I would truly love to know you more. Perhaps even see where this goes, if you so desire." His sincerity moved me profoundly, causing me to weep up and fast blink away the tears. "Mark, I would appreciate that. When the storm passes, let us just wait to see how we feel about things." He smiled kindly, his eyes full of understanding. "I agree. No expectations, no pressure. Sitting side by side, sharing tales and silently creating a connection that seemed fresh yet comfortably familiar, we spent the rest of that rainy night. A feeling I had almost forgotten, something in me sparked with hope and potential. The storm was passing both outside and within by the time daylight drew near. But the unanticipated warmth I found with Mark was the genuine shock of the evening, not the furious storm or falling trees. Though I couldn't yet know how much our lives were about to change, I did know one thing for sure. The storm had brought something unexpected into my life, and there was no turning back now. Morning came softly, pouring mild sunlight through my drapes and spreading patterns across the wooden floor. Outside, trees lay strewn in yards, leaves covering the streets, evidence of yesterday night's tumultuous weather. But within my house, the storm's remains told a different story, one of vulnerability, warmth, and unanticipated friendship. Mark had left soon after daylight to evaluate the damage at his home. His presence stayed in my mind long after the door closed behind him. His eyes held mine when he talked. The honest softness in his voice, these subtle aspects played out nonstop in my head, causing me to smile quietly into my morning coffee. Mark came coming slowly down the street that afternoon as I picked up fallen branches from the garden. His steps stopped momentarily at my property border and then started confidently towards me. "Hey again," he shouted, grinning broadly. "Seems like you have a lot of cleaning to do." Brushing stray hair from my face, I chuckled quietly. "It's not too terrible. How's your house looking?" "Not great, to be honest," he murmured, massaging the back of his neck with a rueful smile. "That tree wrecked some of the roof and my fence. I'll be occupied for a time." "Well," I said right away, startling myself, Let me help you. 2 pairs of hands are superior to 1. Mark appeared surprised by my suggestion. Then, a mild appreciation softened his look. Diane, are you certain? You have a lot of your own mess. Playfully daring him, I set my hands squarely on my hips. Certainly. Apart from that, I owe you for last night keeping me company. His face burst into a real smile, wrinkles softly appearing around his blue eyes. That being the case, I humbly accept. Walking side by side towards Mark's house, I found myself thinking about how natural it seemed to be with him, even if our relationship was short. Being with him made me feel an ease I hadn't had in a long time, one that made the work in front of me seem less overwhelming. Mark's property was in bad condition. The huge tree sprawled across his driveway, twisted limbs strewn over the yard, and broken timber all around. Though he was shaking his head a little, he still managed to stay optimistic. I suppose Mother Nature had different ideas for my weekend. We both chuckled quietly, enjoying a moment of shared amusement. Before long, we started cutting and moving branches, removing rubbish, and finally making little piles close to the curb. Hours flew by. Discussion between us flowed smoothly as though we had known one another for decades. Mark spoke more tales from his past during our breaks, and I revealed my own dreams and anxieties, things I hadn't said aloud to anybody in decades. Under the wide sky, the emotional tie that began in the candlelit intimacy of last night expanded steadily, fortified by mutual understanding and quiet trust. Mark's look became pensive as we stopped late in the day, sitting on his porch railing and drinking chilled lemonade. He said softly, "It's amusing, right? Occasionally, the most terrible storms provide the most insight." I looked up to see the pure sky where only hours before clouds had been raging. Turning to look at him, I said quietly, "I was just thinking about something similar. Sometimes, I think, a little turbulence serves as a reminder of how much we long for connection." Mark looked at me, his gaze softly probing my face, maybe noticing the unsaid weakness I had concealed from others for years. "Diane, I've spent a long time convincing myself I didn't need anyone else. That solitude was strength," he said, his voice cracking slightly. "Being with you, however, makes me see I've been deceiving myself." His comment's gentle honesty moved me and my breath stuck in my throat. I slowly extended my hand and softly rested it on top of his. From that basic act, warmth radiated from his fingers gently tightening around my own. Looking down at our linked hands, I whispered softly, "Maybe we both needed that storm more than we believed." His voice was soft and reflective. "Perhaps fate, Diane. Life waking us up, telling us what we have been lacking." For a time we stood silently, taking in the gravity of the situation. The quiet was filled with subtle tension, a fragile expectation that communicated more than any words. Mark eventually spoke up quietly, his voice low and personal. "Diane, would it be okay if I took you out for dinner one day? I'd really want to see you again in a more deliberate context." Instantaneously, my heart warmed and my grin spread gradually across my face. "That would be great, Mark." Relief mixed with exhilaration as his visage significantly brightened. "Good," he murmured quietly, chuckling softly. "To be honest, I was anxious you might decline." I held his hand encouragingly. "Not after all we've shared. No chance." Mark's garden was softly illuminated by a golden glow as the sun started to sink towards the horizon, reflecting gently in his eyes. Between us was a newly discovered tenderness, a delicate but strong link neither of us had foreseen. Still, it seemed sincere, clearly genuine. Later that evening, I walked back home feeling lighter and more hopeful. Life had surprised me in the greatest possible way, reminding me how much warmth, generosity, and unanticipated relationships could enhance us, even at times we least expected them. Mark, his kindness, transparency, and real vulnerability, was on my mind as I got ready for bed that evening. I had not felt this optimistic about someone in a very long time. Could this storm really have altered everything? I lacked all the solutions, but for the first time in years, I felt driven to find them. With the gentle murmur of nighttime crickets coming through the open window, I whispered a secret thank you to the storm, to fate, and especially to Mark in the still darkness of my bedroom. Little did I realize the emotional intensity of this trip had only just begun, and what happened next would impact us both in ways we could not yet foresee. Thoughts of Mark flowed softly through every moment of the next 4 days, which flew by. Distracted by memories of our shared talks and the gentle comfort of his presence, I found myself smiling impulsively. At 47, I had not expected to feel like a schoolgirl impatiently waiting for a phone call, but my pulse raced every time I looked towards his house. The day of our meal finally came. Mark had recommended we visit the lovely small Italian restaurant downtown, a warm family-owned business famous for its soft lighting and intimate vibe. It had been long since I had felt this anxious or thrilled. That night, I dressed carefully, selecting a plain yet beautiful blue outfit that highlighted the brilliance in my eyes. I grinned at my mirror reflection, seeing how the excitement had softened my features and given me a young glow I had nearly forgotten. My breath caught as Mark came to fetch me up, waiting at my door with a lovely grin. His black pants matched his strong, quiet attitude. He wore a neat navy button-down shirt with sleeves pulled up casually. He gave me one gently scented, deep crimson rose. Quietly, with sincerity clear in his loving gaze, he said, "Diane, you look lovely." Accepting the rose and breathing in its exquisite perfume, I reddened slightly. "Thanks, Mark. You seem really kind, too." We found a corner table under lovely golden lighting at the restaurant. Soft music in the background set a mood that welcomed closeness and openness. Laughter and times of quiet understanding punctuated natural conversation. Mark's eyes glimmered with soft humor as he remembered his youth, and I told stories from my own history, astonished at how easily vulnerability appeared when speaking to him. Halfway through our meal, Mark's face turned thoughtful and a little uncertainty appeared. Meeting my gaze with deliberate earnestness, he carefully set his fork down. "Diane," he started slowly, "there's something I feel I need to tell you, something that's been on my mind since the storm." I stopped, my heart racing all of a sudden. "Go on," I said gently, attempting to mask the little fear that started to surface. He breathed deeply and slowly, as if collecting his thoughts. Years have passed since I let myself feel this way about someone. Ever since I lost Lisa, my late wife, I've held myself back emotionally. I thought shutting out vulnerability meant protecting myself from pain. But after meeting you, I realized I've been denying myself something essential. His sincerity moved me greatly, and I automatically stretched over the table to softly put my palm on his hand. "Mark, thank you for saying this. After losing someone you loved so much, you have every right to be wary. But vulnerability, letting us feel deeply, is what gives life meaning." His look softened appreciatively, and relief spread over his features. "You're correct, Diane, and that's precisely why this night means so much to me. I'm deciding to open myself up once more, to run the chance of experiencing something significant. with you." His remarks made my heart swell and warmth spread across my chest. "I feel precisely the same," I said quietly, vulnerable but safe in his company. Deep down, I've been yearning genuine connection despite having spent so long pretending I was perfectly well on my own. When you arrived during that storm, I realized what I had been lacking. Savoring the newly found connection between us, we shared a calm moment of mutual understanding, fingers gently interlaced on the tablecloth. We strolled leisurely under softly lighting streetlights across town following dinner. A soft wind stirring leaves around us made the night somewhat cold. My hand located Mark's without deliberate thought. Our fingers intertwined automatically. It seemed appropriate, simple yet very important. Mark stopped as we walked by a little park softly lit by moonlight and turned gently towards me. He reached up to delicately brush a strand of hair from my face in the silent stillness, fingertips lingering softly against my cheek. "Diane," he said softly, his voice real and kind. "Meeting you has reminded me how good it feels to share life with someone else. I didn't expect this. I didn't even think it was feasible. But now that you're here, I don't want to let this feeling go." The honesty evident in his gaze made my breath catch and my heart race faster. "Mark, I don't either. You have opened my heart in ways I believed were gone forever." He inched closer, pausing a little as though waiting for my go-ahead. I lifted my face up without thinking to meet his lips gently. Though soft, our kiss was full of strong, silent intensity that said volumes. The loneliness that had characterized our recent years vanished totally in that one moment under the starry sky. Mark closed his eyes and softly placed his forehead against mine as we separated, as though relishing the profundity of the moment. "I never imagined I'd feel this again," he said softly. Fingers gently stroking the side of his face, I said, "Me either. I appreciate your risk-taking." Walking home hand in hand under the sky made me feel different, lighter, more optimistic, and emotionally awakened. Our unplanned evening had softly opened doors inside both of us, letting warmth and intimacy pour into areas we had kept quite guarded for far too long. Mark stopped at my door and turned to look at me with a soft smile. "Thank you, Diane, for tonight. For all you do." I squeezed his hand lovingly and grinned broadly. "Mark, tonight is only the start. I really believe that." Walking back towards his house warmed my heart with great appreciation. Life had startled me, had astonished us, in a way neither of us had thought conceivable. I felt revitalized, emotionally aroused, and profoundly linked in a way that made my pulse race with anticipation for the future. Little did I know then, our path was only starting and the most deep revelation waited just ahead. Every day more colorful and lively than the last, the weeks that followed appeared to pass in a hazy haze. Mark and I shared long walks, peaceful evenings, and the sort of simple friendship I'd long since forgotten was possible, spending as much time together as we could. Once alone, my world had grown into something considerably more satisfying, richer, warmer. On a bright afternoon, while we sipped coffee on my front porch, Mark looked towards me pensively, his eyes soft yet serious. "Diane, I've been mulling over how odd it is, how our paths intersected that stormy night, almost as if fate decided to intervene." Leaning comfortably against him, I grinned broadly. I felt the same way. A storm was the last thing I expected to bring such joy into my life. He held my hand with tenderness. I didn't either. Years have passed since I felt linked to anyone, Now I cannot picture going back. Distant thunder, an unexpected reminder of the night our trip had started, disrupted our silent thought. Slowly, clouds formed in the sky. Their soft rumbling was a comforting reminder of the beauty possible from disorder. Mark astonished me later that evening by reaching into his wallet for an old picture as rain softly tapped against the window panes. When he gave it to me, his face was gentle and nostalgic. "This was Lisa," he remarked softly, his voice full of respect. "Every day since Mom died, I've carried this picture with me. Tonight seems appropriate to finally let go." I closely inspected the faded picture. Lisa was a nice woman with a sincere, warm smile, someone obviously loved and much valued. Mark's candor made me feel tight in both sympathy and appreciation. "Mark, she was lovely." "She must have been quite unique," I said earnestly. His eyes were thoughtful as he gently shook his head. "She was. She showed me how crucial it is to love openly, without regret. For years, I believed I would never experience that again, but now, Diane, I discovered something amazing with you. You have revived me." Tears clouded my sight as I carefully returned the image to his palm. "Mark, I can't tell you how much it means to me that you shared this. I want to respect what you have had, what you have lost, and value what we are constructing together." His eyes glimmered gently as he stared at me closely. "That's precisely how I feel, Diane. Meeting you has shown me that love is limitless. Our hearts expand. They don't replace. I never thought I could feel this strongly again, but here we are, and it seems perfect." As we held each other gently and rain gently ran over the windows, my heart swelled. It was a time of silent thankfulness, a mutual recognition of loss, development, and the lovely complexity of discovering love once more. Several weeks later, Mark asked me to a weekend trip to a cottage tucked away in the surrounding mountains. Quiet, calm, and profoundly romantic, it was the ideal venue. Under stars so brilliant they looked impossibly near, we hiked beautiful trails, laughed together, and talked profoundly into the night. Mark looked at me on our last night near the crackling fireplace, covered in a beautiful quilt, his gaze warm but vulnerable. "Diane, these last few months have changed me in ways I never imagined. I never thought I'd meet someone who gets me the way you do. You have opened my heart again and given my life more happiness than I ever imagined." Happiness made my eyes wet and emotions surged inside me. "Mark, I feel precisely the same. You have returned me to myself. Now, I cannot picture my life without you in it." He drew a little velvet box from his pocket. Anticipation flooded my chest, and my pulse soared, breath-catching. Mark's voice quivered a little. Every syllable showed honesty. "Diane, life brought us together in the most unexpected way. Through a storm, a knockdown tree, and a soft knock on your door. I believe with all my heart that we were intended to find each other. So tonight, I want to ask you, will you marry me?" Nodding fervently and chuckling gently in my happiness, I found tears rolling down my face. "Of course I'll marry you, Mark. Yes, naturally." Then he softly pulled me into his arms after slipping a thin, dazzling ring upon my finger. Joyfully by the warm glow of the fire, we kissed deeply, sealing our dedication to enjoy the unexpected, lovely path life had given us. We told friends and neighbors our joyous news as we returned home. Their congratulations' sincerity reflected the happiness we both experienced profoundly within. Privately, though, we understood that our actual celebration was much quieter, much deeper. A shared awareness of love produced from vulnerability, openness, and emotional fortitude. A few close friends, neighbors, and relatives surrounded us as we married in a tiny, intimate ceremony in our lawn some months later. Our vows were honest, sincere, and very emotional, reflecting our path. Standing before Mark and gazing into his eyes, I knew without a doubt that this storm, both literal and emotional, had taken us precisely where we needed to be. Mark gently grasped my hand later that evening as darkness fell softly about us and smiled at me lovingly. "Mrs. Anderson, are you ready for whatever follows next?" Feeling really thankful and quite optimistic, I squeezed his hand affectionately. "Mark, facing it together will help me to be ready for anything." Beneath a sky slowly filling with stars, we stood together with hearts bonded by vulnerability, openness, and mutual respect. Our path had been unanticipated, profoundly emotional, and life-changing in ways we never thought imaginable. Facing our future made one thing certain. Together we found something amazing, the bravery to love truly, freely, and without regret. And that was worth every storm we had ever confronted.